Masterclass with the one and only Paul Proctor. So that's what's going to be going on this morning. But I can't think of anybody better to kick off the second day here at the Open Weekend. It's the one and only Jeremy Wade. He will be back up a little bit later with a question and answer with all the experts up here at 2:15. Also, if you're not rushing away and you want a bit of fun this afternoon at 3 o'clock, Jeremy will be taking on Simon Gawesworth in a fly V spinner. That was a bit of fun yesterday. And if you haven't seen social media, you won't know who won yesterday. But my money was on Jeremy and I backed the right person, so that gives you a hint, all right? So all you fly fishermen, right, you've got to come and support Simon Gawesworth this afternoon because Jeremy absolutely hammered him yesterday. So ladies and gentlemen, those of you sat down here, will you please put your hands together and give a nice warm welcome to Jeremy Wade.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I've actually got some good sort of IT support today. Yesterday, I was fiddling around with my laptop, and everybody was having to talk amongst themselves while I was finding the pictures. This is great. I should say right at the outset, I do feel a little bit fraudulent standing here and being invited to an event like this because, to be honest, I've done very little fly fishing. Probably a lot less than many people here. And what I have done has been rather non-standard, to say the least, and also I've sort of done it in a very back-to-front way, as will become clear. But just a quick rewind in terms of where I came from with my fishing. I grew up, I started fishing on the Suffolk Stour, so this is a lowland, slow, winding river, southeast England, and I started off fishing for roach, chub, perch, pike. So I'm using bread, I'm using worms, that kind of thing. Then I went on to carp fishing. Fly fishing trout wasn't really on the radar. I did have a school friend who used to go occasionally, and I do remember, I think twice I borrowed his gear, and I paid 10 shillings for a day ticket. That tells you how long ago it was. Some people might not even know what shillings are here. But other than that, I haven't really done anything until the last few years. So I'm a bait fisherman, really. And what I am known for mostly is, the kind of bait I use now is often a lump of dead fish on the bottom, and I pull in something like that. That was, still is, because it went back. That is a Lau Lau catfish from Suriname, not Suriname, Guyana in South America. And I'll tell you what gear I got that on, but you might actually want to cover your ears before I go into the details of what I caught it on. So that was on a 6 foot, so I'm getting a little bit of, just move that away from my mouth, I'm getting a little bit of, there we go. That was on a 6 foot rod that was built for shore fishing for shark. So about the same flexibility as a broom handle, if you can imagine that. A massive multiplier reel loaded with a couple hundred yards of 100-pound nylon monofilament. And I had a big game fishing harness that I was strapped into to save my arms and my back. And we had a digital scale, which is sort of industrial scale, which is used for weighing lumps of concrete for that. And we put it in a sling, and that was 251 pounds. So you might think you can't get any further away from fly fishing than that. But actually, one thing that I've come to realize is that there are certain general principles that apply right across fishing. And in fact, one thing that played a very big part with catching that was it's reading the water, and it's the hydraulics of the water. And I think we're all familiar with eddies that do that, but rivers are three-dimensional. They also do that as well. So I was, I suppose my thing over the years, bait fishing, although it sounds quite unsophisticated, lump of dead fish, lump of lead, but big rivers that look like it's just a uniform flow, just flowing really, really fast. How on earth can you get a bait to present, to hold position? I've sort of developed, my thing is working out where can I position myself, where can I cast, so that a comparatively light weight will just find its way and settle on the bottom. So you can present a bait, and actually that will be the kind of place where you'll find fish as well, because the fish, they don't like wasting energy unnecessarily. So they'll be there, they'll be waiting for fish. So in a sense, it's similar to us. If you, it's almost like a scaled-up version of, say, a weighted nymph cast into a stream. So okay, I'm using a few ounces of lead, but the water's really strong. So it's a similar principle to some fly fishing. Coming up next, there is a clip following on this theme. This is the very first episode of River Monsters that I did. Well, it wasn't even going to be called that. It was just, it was going to be a one-off program. I was in India, and a lot of struggling, looking for this large fish, and this is the final capture of the fish. Again, big lump of weight, dead fish, and again positioned in a way that, I mean, you'll see the water. I actually managed to have the bait was on the bottom, holding the rod, feeling the line, and moving that bait around, letting it search the water.
It's in the fast water. Something very powerful on here. Try and relax and keep a bit calm. Gaining a tiny bit of line. Right, the water is flowing this way now. I've got it into the water that's flowing this way.
I have been fishing long enough that I've developed a kind of sixth sense. I know when I have a big fish on, and this is a big fish.
It's gone, you know, it's gone. There's a lot of line out and some very strong water the other side of it, so it's...
The big problem here is that if it gets out of this pool, I am never going to be able to pull this fish back up against this current.
Very touch and go, very touch and go.
And then it does exactly what I didn't want it to do. Either this fish is gone, or I've got to do something drastic.
I'm gonna have to go for a swim.
I don't know what I'm thinking, apart from being desperate not to lose this fish, regardless of my own safety.
Wait till it comes up. Wait. Now!
Yeah, it's not exactly pretty, but I think it's a bit like some films are so bad they're good. Some fish are so ugly they're beautiful. Perfectly adapted for that kind of environment as well. And the thing I was saying about reading the water, that wasn't just about presenting the bait, but also getting it in. I was looking at that river, thinking if I get something in, there's no point hooking something if you're not going to land it. And there was this big eddy there, and I'm thinking, if I can keep it in the pool, if I can bring it into this water close to me, then I can stop it running downstream. If it runs downstream, I can't follow it. There's a cliff there. Maybe I jump in, but what I did, I'd actually checked out the water downstream, so it wasn't blind, it wasn't this moment of total madness. I had thought it through. I hoped I wasn't going to have to do it, but and when you jump in, when you're like that, the water's there. Suddenly the far bank is a lot further away. Here's an interesting thing. You could probably, so there we go, that's a more detailed view. I talked about being very adapted to, they've got those huge pectoral fins, and they are very adapted to holding position in rapids. And they're just holding their strong water. Anything small gets swept past them, they'll just grab them. They'll open the mouth, inhale them. The thing is, they're very vulnerable to people in rapids. So over the years, they used to be quite common fish. They're now very, very rare. You won't find them in rapids. You'll only find them in deeper pools. But if you had a time machine and you went back 150 years, you could possibly hook one of those on a fly. And the reason I say that is 37 years ago, I hooked a small one, about 30 pounds or so, on a silver spoon in a rapid. Something took it, tore off downstream. 11-pound line. Half an hour, 250 yards later, and after throwing several stones at it to try and get it off the bottom, finally got it in. So I think, if you went back in time and used a fly, but unfortunately now, they are not, they're just so rare, so thin on the ground. Another one quickly from the archives. There we go. Goliath tigerfish, Congo. That was caught on bait. That would definitely take a streamer fly. The thing is, they have such a bony mouth. They're very hard to keep on the hook. But that was caught from Congo, Central Africa. Actually, your whole fishing methodology is the least of your worries there. The main challenge is just going there, getting out in one piece, and hopefully having enough energy to do some fishing, maybe. Big stingray from the Rio Paraná in Argentina. That's one fish you're definitely not going to catch on a fly. I say that. I mean, fishing, you're always going to be surprised. Somebody might, but I think you'd never get it in. That took me near 10 minutes short of 4 hours to get into the boat, and it's just brute force. It's just trying to break the suction, get it off the bottom. This is also a fish that most fish are neutrally buoyant in the water. They've got the swim bladder. They don't actually weigh anything in the water. This is negatively buoyant. It's a dead weight. It's very hard to get in. Alligator gar from Texas. That was caught on bait, but this is a very interesting fish. This is another fish. It's very hard to hook. They've got a bony mouth. They tend to just hold the bait there. And in the old days, people used to catch them with nylon, ladies' stockings. They'd get a bait and they'd wrap it up in nylon, and the teeth, there's so many teeth there. I mean, hundreds is not an exaggeration, would get tangled up. So you could design a fly. Unfortunately, when I'm filming, I have very short time, and it's all about getting a fish out as quickly as possible, the most productive way. But you could design a fly where if one of these took, it would tangle in the teeth, and you might get it in that way. And I say that with some confidence because that is a long-nosed gar, also from the States. This is Vermont State, and that was caught on a fly. And the way I caught that was quite interesting. It was breeding season. They're starting to get together to breed, so I could see the fish. And you can't see the fly there, but I used a fairly small, fluffy fly. And what I did, I just kept getting it in its face. So the nose is there, and I kept getting it next to its eye and just moving it around. Eventually, it just lost patience and just grabbed it, and I managed to catch it. So not a feeding reaction, but almost like reflex annoyance, maybe the kind of thing that happens with salmon. And that was actually a really interesting shoot because I had a fishing guide who was he was very much into catching different species on fly. And so we also went and that was my first carp on fly. And you can see the water behind. That's actually, very often when people catch carp on fly, it's just something suspended in mid-water. Maybe you twitch it occasionally and the carp will take it. This was in a rapid. It was swimming up the rapid, and it took my fly. And the next fish, I think it's the next one. Yeah, there we go. I wonder if anyone will recognize this. This is an American fish. A lot of people there don't even know what this thing is. I'm hearing people say, what, yes?
Is it a snakehead?
I've heard people say snakehead. It looks really, really like a snakehead. It is not a snakehead. People see this in America and they panic because snakeheads, it's an invasive species from Asia. They can really, they can take over a water. There's loads of them in Florida. It's not a snakehead. It's a fish called a bowfin, which is an American fish. It's related to alligator gar. It has a very primitive lineage. And that was caught, again, slightly non-standard. That was getting ready to breed. Again, it's sight fishing. You're very quietly going around in a boat. You spot the fish. And again, you're just you're invading its territory with the fly. So that was a really interesting catch. Unfortunately, none of these fish appeared on the TV programs because you've got limited space in a TV program, what you can fit in. So none of this got seen. So the first time that I was actually seen on TV catching fly fishing for anything was for taimen in Mongolia. I didn't put a clip up partly because my casting's a little bit embarrassing, but I did manage to get one. My challenge there, so I was using 9 weight gear, quite heavy flies, quite a bit of air resistance, and with that you've really got to get your casting technique pretty good. You know, the double haul's got to work. But anyway, I did manage that fish there, and that was caught on a fly called a Titanic, which it's a couple of bits of foam, or sort of like neoprene, glued together to make a mini sort of boat-shaped thing, and then you skitter that across the surface. And I'd seen this fish rise, and I was trying to skitter it across the. When fish are looking up, they see this window above them. It's a circular window, and trying to get it into that window so that it then reacts to it. The next fish that I caught on fly on TV. Similar weight gear, 9 weight gear, was I went to Argentina to try and catch dorado. I was using lures as well, but I went to this. There's a very big wetland there called the Esteros del Iberá, and it's the second biggest wetland in the world. No one's ever heard of it though, and managed to catch. I mean, they're just beautiful, almost salmon-like in profile. But you can't really see the head very clearly there. They have it's like they got jaws like a Staffordshire Terrier. There's just so much muscle there in the jaw, and a lot of sharp teeth, and the obligatory, because I've only got 2 hands, obligatory fly rod in the teeth thing there. Anyway, some while after that. I went to Nicaragua in Central America, and what I was going to try and do there was to catch a tarpon on fly. Now that was going to be something completely different. Potentially fish of over 100 pounds, well over 100 pounds. So I knew I was going to need to up my game a little bit. So partly about getting the casting nailed or improved. But the other thing was I knew I was going to be fishing from a float tube. So this is those inflatable. It's normally like a bit of an armchair, and your feet are hanging in the water. You've got dive fins on, and you're steering yourself with the dive fins. So in terms of fly casting, which can be sort of hard enough anyway, it's like someone's chopped you off at the waist, and you're just right down near water level. And my production team, they had chosen my particular float tube based on what was going to look good on camera rather than what was going to work best. And so instead of having a sort of an armchair type thing, which looks a bit like what somebody might have in their swimming pool, they went for something that was more like an inflatable canoe. You'll see it in a minute. And my feet were out the bottom. The trouble with that was it was quite cumbersome. I couldn't maneuver it very quickly. And there's one fish that I hooked. I managed to lose it after it was on for 2 hours. Now this is, it sounds incredible. I had a tarpon on for 2 hours on 12 weight gear, 175 pound leader. Okay, the rod's not going to take a lot of strain, but the rod's fairly flat. 2 hours, this thing, eventually to bring it to the side of the boat. And what tarpon do is they, when you first hook them, they throw themselves in the air. If they don't throw the hook then, they will settle down and they will circle. And what I was trying to do, the tactic for this, so it was just circling at a distance of, see where that table is there, really close, and just going round and round and round. I couldn't do anything about it. And what you try and do is you get some line off the reel, so you trap the line, but you get some line off the reel, and then while it's circling, what you do is you then pay it some line. So what happens, it then goes like that. While it's going like that, you kick into position so that you're then pulling back directly on the fish. And what that does is if you line up properly, it will stop it in its tracks. It's lost its momentum. It's then got to start moving again. If you keep doing that, eventually it will tire out. Anyway, this float tube was so cumbersome. Every time I tried doing that, I didn't quite get in position. It took me a long, long time before eventually I was, the tarpon was starting to tire. The other thing that tarpon do, very interesting, they can come up and they can gulp air. So when they're getting tired, they can gulp air, and there's much more oxygen in the atmosphere than there is underwater. And it's like a marathon runner grabbing an energy drink. And if you're in one of those armchair type float tubes, what you do is when you see it's going to do that, you push the rod tip under the water and you stop it getting to the surface. The thing that I had, I couldn't do that. So it just kept coming up for air, going down again. 2 hours, like I say. Eventually got it into the side, grabbed hold of it, took the hook out. I was going to show it to the camera, look at this, and it just gave a final kick and it was gone. And one thing I remember from that, which was, it's sort of quite funny in retrospect, is I was, you know what it's like when you lose a fish. I'd lost this big fish, 2 hours, I was just completely mentally frazzled. And I looked up, the camera's there, and the director has the biggest grin on his face you could imagine. If you're a TV person, they love those moments of real emotion. Even if it's sorrow and misery, they just love that, and you know that they're going to use it. They also always, whenever I mess up, hook a tree or stuff, always going to be used. If I start swearing, that's brilliant. They love all that. So they were very happy. Oh, the other good thing about failure, you'll know this if you fish. The good thing about failure is if you fail, it makes your success so much more meaningful. Just to succeed all the time is boring. We'd all stop. So anyway, as long as we got a good result, having failure is good. Are we going to get a good result? Well, I did manage to catch a couple of tarpon. There's one coming up. There's a clip. And pay fairly close attention to this because it's actually a really good bit of camera work as well. I cast out. I'm stripping the lure in. Sometimes when they take, it's quite a gentle take, and I thought I felt something, and the cameraman reacted. And as soon as something happened, immediately he pulls out and just gets the action that follows. And it's a really good bit of good bit of filming. There's one shot there that we cut in that will be apparent. There's one shot which you go, hang on a minute, how can the camera be there and then be there? That's just what TV does. But the first bit of this is quite impressive.
I'm hoping to glide into casting range without being noticed.
Something, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, it might be off. No, still there. Gosh, the line is going in the water nowhere near the fish.
The fish I've hooked is running at phenomenal speed, back and forth across the river. And it looks like it's taken my line around a branch. It's getting difficult to see. If I can't free the line quickly, I'll lose this fish.
Oh, there's all sorts of stuff here. Okay, I need to get myself through there. I've got to get underneath this branch. Oh, I'm stuck. Stuck. I'm stuck on the branch.
So, no shortage of drama with the tarpon fishing. The good news on that one, I did get it in, and there we go. And, just incredible fish. And, to this day, the stamina, there's very few fish have that stamina. Anyway, following on from that, how can you top that? Well, a few years after that, I did a program where I was going to try to catch arapaima on fly. Now, arapaima is the iconic fish of the Amazon. It's the fish that lives in the backwater lakes. Said by many people to be the biggest freshwater fish in the world. It's a predatory fish. It has a very interesting adaptation. Because the water level can go up and down so much in the Amazon, by as much as 50 feet in places, when the water goes down, you can have quite a shallow pool sometimes, and maybe there's quite a big fish in there. But the the oxygen levels get really low, the water warms up. Most fish are having a hard time. Arapaima, like the tarpon, is able to come up, it can gulp air, so it's active in that water, it's hunting all the other fish. When it comes up to the surface as well, that also gives its position away. And you can, with training, you can recognize them, because there's other things as well coming up. There's turtles, there's caimans, there's maybe anacondas, there's all sorts of stuff coming up. But it has a signature rise to the surface. When it goes down, it burps out bubbles from its gills, and you can tell which way it's going. So, and what you're trying to do, if you're fly fishing, is you're watching. It's not fishing blind. You're watching for a rise, and then you're working out which way it's going, and you're trying to get the fly to. So the fish comes up to the surface. It's going down, 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 down. You want the fly to sort of intercept it like that. So it's all about accuracy, timing. So I got some casting lessons before I went, and spent a lot of time practicing in a field, getting the distance, but also, okay, that leaf over there, let's try and land it, let's try and pull it past that leaf. Went to this lake, and I just spent a week, not very successful. I caught one fish, about 110 pounds, which for an arapaima is it's not big enough for the program. You need something bigger. So a week, nothing else, nothing else, nothing else. Went to another lake. I decided with the guide, I'm not even going to cast unless I see a fish that I can actually get the fly in position. So we went out, we watched, we paddled, we found a group of fish, 3 fish, 2 small ones, 1 big one. And this is what happened next.
It's starting to rain. I'm hoping it's the cue the fish have been waiting for.
Yeah. Is the fish?
But can I keep it on my line?
It's gonna jump. Coming up again. Whoa. This is a large fish.
But I'm feeling massively undergunned.
It's coming.
All I have to pull in this giant is a thin rod and a wobbly canoe.
That's the fish there.
I'm trying to stop the fish coming to the surface. If it jumps, it could spit out the hook. But it seems the fish is calling the shots.
Heavy fish, heavy fish, heavy fish. Rod in a painful curve, painful curve.
As the fish comes closer, the danger becomes very real. If it jumps in our direction, the results could be deadly.
Coming up, it's coming up, it's coming up, it's coming, it's gonna jump, it's gonna jump, it's gonna jump.
This is a lot bigger than any arapaima I've caught before. I need to get it into the shallows.
In a bit more, please.
This fish weighs at least 250 pounds.
Keep holding, because I'm... Look at this! Arapaima on a fly.
As a lot of you know, a fly is not always representing an insect. You can just see it hanging out of the mouth there. It looks a bit like a sort of drowned.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was it.
A drowned budgerigar or something. That was actually tied. It's about 8 inches long, tied to replicate a peacock bass, which is quite a well-known Amazonian game fish.
I'd also like to invite.
There was a bit of just explaining a bit of the melodrama there. I'm going, oh, if this jumps out of the water, it could be very dangerous. Not totally gratuitous. I was a long time ago,
artificial salmon
15,
filming,
16 years ago,
about the
I was
high
hit by a
cost
small
of
one of those. So that was about 250 pounds. I was hit by one about 70 or 80 pounds
causing
in
to
the chest.
all the wild salmon.
And
that will be at Fallows.
This is not an exaggeration. I can still feel that after 6 weeks.
And you're even invited for
these
a
are
free
fish.
beer.
The males, when they're breeding, they will fight. They will headbutt each other. They can kill each other. You know, one male can kill another male. The females have been known to kill males as well. If the male is bothering them too much and they're not interested, they will kill the male. So that was why I was a little bit nervous of that. Anyway, so as you can see, I talked about doing fly fishing a little bit, back to front. So, 9, 10, 12 weight gear, whereas I'm in that position where I hardly know the one end of a trout from another. But just to finish off, this is me last week, and there was nobody. There was no one else there to photograph me, but honestly, I was so happy with that. I'm now, that's my local river. I was under trees. The water was coloured. It was up. I only saw 2 fish rising, and I'd sort of given up fishing. I think I'm just going to treat this as casting practice. I'm just going to, if there was fish moving around, how can I position? I was fiddling around trying to do a sort of a single-handed spey cast. I had some spey casting lessons a little while ago, and then I saw something under some branches, and I'm thinking, oh, can I get anything at that? And I was doing sort of the backhand cast under the branches. And that was the result. I was really chuffed. So it's not all about size. The enjoyment. It's about the story. It's about it's everything really. So that's it really. It's just I wanted to get across a little bit of my story, but also, in my view, heavy bait fishing, delicate fly fishing, so many actual common principles. There's an awful lot of overlap, and I know a lot of people here they're not just fly anglers, they're coarse anglers, sea fishing, you name it. So that's a little bit of my non-standard fly fishing for you. Thank you very much. Yeah.